Welcome to the O Brother Podcast with hosts Dan and Mike Smith, brothers from the same mother with different opinions on movies, TV, video games, and more, plus celebrity interviews. Get ready, get set. It's time for the O Brother Podcast. Welcome to the O Brother. Take two. Welcome to the O Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
Hey, Dan, or
Thank you very much.
should I say, hey, Danny?
Is that Johnny Carson? Like, what
yeah,
is
a little
that?
Johnny Carson, because we've been doing talk shows.
Makes no sense.
Like
at
when
all.
I bring up the last couple.
So,
of,
okay, you've got a chance to bring out what, half a dozen names of current talk show hosts, but you go way back into the archives and
Because
pull out
nobody
somebody that
has-
most listeners wouldn't even know.
Well, one thing, I don't watch any of them anymore. The only one I watched was Conan, and nobody has a catchphrase, do they?
Not really.
Here's some guy
That
named
went out in the
Jimmy.
like. Do you need a catchphrase?
Well, I mean, that was like Johnny's thing, here's Johnny.
Do you need a catchphrase? Said the one of two hosts of the O Brother Podcast. I guess that answers that. So August. Wow. See, I'm thinking about the movie release on HBO Max. We'll get to that in a second. You just froze.
You did too.
That was so weird. Okay. So it's September 12th, 2022, when you get in this episode of the O Brother Podcast. For those of you that aren't currently following us, make sure that you do. The easiest way to find all things O Brother is, of course, to go out to our official website, which is OHB as in brother podcast.com. That's OHBpodcast.com. And make sure that you go out to YouTube and look us up on YouTube and subscribe and hit that thumbs up.
I got a thing now with the subscribe. I got to say, well, you're talking about it. If I let you go past this, I miss my opportunity. So there's a deal. So you want to jump on this deal. Next 10 subscribers.
I can already tell this bit is going right into the toilet.
Next 10 subscribers, no charge, free of charge.
Nicholas, Anthony, prepare yourselves.
Next 10,
Sniff, sniff, sniff.
freebie.
Wow. How long does it take you to come up with these?
Wow.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
I mean, a freebie.
No, look, we've been gaining some traction on the YouTube channel, and we appreciate everybody that's clicked subscribe, hit that notification bell, all the things that they say, to do to follow us. But we do appreciate that because it's we've gotten a good response. And we had this string of interviews recently that we did that we were very fortunate to have, and didn't really expect to have a few back to back, but it was really nice having Cindy Busby back on the show too. That was very cool. And of course, we had a great conversation with Ansley Gordon. And then I guess it was Kerry and Summer Balessa, and then Jimmy Mack of Rebel Force Radio before that. So it's quite a few in a short period of time.
That was like within, 6 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah, it's phenomenal. So we're shifting gears back to really one of the original iterations of the O Brother Podcast. When we used to do a thing called movie reviews.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Really? I said, I thought you were going to say me. We're shifting
no.
back to the original,
No.
meaning I get some more mic time.
No. Now, I notice you're dressed in black, which is pretty much typical. Now,
Well, that was supposed to be what we agreed upon.
are you wearing the, is that the O Brother shirt?
It's not, but it's the same thing.
Okay. So was this in honor of the review that we're doing tonight, which is about Elvis, the movie?
No, if it was about, that, do this.
I was going to say, you pop the collar. Pop the car. I still do that just naturally. It just seems like that's the way it's supposed to be.
Is that why you're
You know?
wearing the jacket?
Yeah, a little, little. Can you see this? Support live music.
Hmm.
You can't see hire live musicians is what it says,
Oh,
but yeah, this is
where'd
kind
that
of in
come
honor
from?
of Elvis. That was a gift from my girlfriend. So, all right, so Elvis the movie. Now,
Elvis the movie.
this was out in theaters back in June, but it
Mhm.
just came out on HBO Max. What, August, whatever it was, just like last week,
Yeah,
a
and this
couple weeks
I'll
ago.
I'll tell you, yesterday was when we're filming this, yesterday was Disney Plus Day. This is
Right.
what I've expected. Disney Plus is now what I expected it to be all along. The movie comes out in the theater, about 6 weeks, it's on Disney Plus.
So, okay, so you're saying you're expecting that from Disney Plus more.
Yeah, well, we
Yeah.
haven't had, like, one of those, what did they call it? Disney Plus exclusives or whatever the hell they called it.
Premiere access.
Premiere.
Yeah.
Notice we haven't had that.
Yeah.
So they must have had a lot of mics, meaning me, calling and complaining.
Complaining about it. Well, yeah, and if you want to go back to the episode that started it all, it was about a little film called Mulan,
Mulan, yeah.
which has over 11,000 views now on the Old
And
Brother
that's
podcast.
Mulan, the live action.
That's the live action one. Yeah, very
Yeah.
hotly contested episode that we had. So check that one out
It
on our
was.
YouTube channel. But all right, so Elvis, this is Baz Luhrmann. Now, did you know anything about Baz Luhrmann going into this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
well, all right, give us the Baz Luhrmann lowdown.
Well, I mean, just his films, I saw Australia, which is the first movie of his I saw with Nicole Kidman
Nicole Kidman,
and
right?
Hugh Jackman.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, they've both done another movie with him. One was the one with Nicole Kidman was, you know the name of it?
The one with what are you saying?
Baz Luhrmann's movie with Nicole Kidman starring.
Baz Luhrmann or Baz Luhrmann?
Did I say Thurman? I'm
Yeah.
gonna say that.
You're thinking
I don't know if it's Thurman Munson.
Yeah,
because Baz Luhrmann is a hell of a catcher.
Or who is the Grinch? Ravenscroft, Thurles Ravencroft, or whatever. Who is that?
I don't know that one.
There's somewhere in there. There's a reference, but
Yeah.
So Baz Luhrmann. No, I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Spit it out.
Oh, jeez. It was another big extravaganza musical. I have it, and it's.
You talking about Moulin Rouge?
Yeah, thank you. Moulin
Okay, this is the
Rouge.
second time I've had to help you out with Moulin Rouge.
With that title?
Because we were talking about Ewan McGregor and Kenobi, because of course he was
That's
in that
right.
with Nicole Kidman, yeah.
And also he did, what was the Hugh? Do you have his profile up?
Not.
Oh, because
he did one with. Yeah.
He did one with Hugh Jackman,
mm-hmm.
Like the Man, the Entertainer, the Greatest Entertainer, something like that.
Yes, right.
So those three I've seen, and I like them all. Shockingly, I'm not a big musical. I like going to the theater and seeing musicals, but when you said Elvis, I kind of was like, ugh.
The Great Gatsby.
The Great Gatsby is another one with Leo
and Romeo and Juliet. And his first
that's right.
His first directorial feature was Strictly Ballroom, which I haven't seen.
Yeah,
that was.
I got to correct myself because Romeo and Juliet was the first one I saw.
Okay,
that was with Claire Danes as well, and Leo wanted to do Elvis.
Listen to you, Leo.
Well,
first name basis. Yeah.
We're going to go say the same thing again.
Continuing that streak. Now, Baz Luhrmann, for me, it's interesting because he had a there was I don't know if you know this, there was a commencement address a long time ago. I forget who gave it. I don't think it was him, but it was everybody. Everybody's free to wear sunscreen was the name of the song, and it was, I believe, it was in the 90s, maybe the early 2000s. But
Is this a production?
it was just a song. It was just a single that came out,
Oh,
and you could look it up on Apple Music or YouTube.
and what
or
did he
whatever.
direct it?
Yeah, he produced it. I don't know. I don't remember. Let me see. I got to look this up. The sunscreen commencement address to see who this was.
I never heard about this.
You
This
never heard
is-
about this?
No. Mm-mm.
So this is okay. The greatest commencement speech ever. Class of '99, wear sunscreen. Let's see. Who gave the speech, wear sunscreen? Advice like youth probably just wasted on the young, commonly known by the title Wear Sunscreen, is an essay written as a hypothetical commencement speech, hypothetical, by columnist Mary Schmitch.
So is
Say that 10
this
times
something
fast.
we can see?
It was published in 1997 in the Chicago Tribune. Yeah, now I thought it was an actual commencement speech. I must be wrong.
Yeah, because they're saying
wait.
hypothetical. What?
Okay, so wear sunscreen. The story behind the commencement speech that Kurt Vonnegut never gave. Anyways, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with
Right.
that. But just to say, the reason I bring that up is because if you play that single, it's it's very it has similar qualities to what you find in this movie and other works by Baz Luhrmann, which is this kind of fantastical take on things. And he's somebody who's able to take something very classic and mash it up with something very contemporary and make it work.
Well,
That's
with
I guess
Elvis.
that's in the eye of the beholder. Right.
N-
Well,
no,
that's
with
right. That's a great
Elvis.
point.
Look
Sure.
at
That's
how
right.
it starts with him, on Beale Street
Yeah.
in the kind of a jazzy kind of sound. And then he gets into the rock and roll sound that, basically Elvis stole from Beale Street in a way, or he took bits and pieces from everyone. And
Yeah.
then eventually you can hear him throughout the movie metamorphosize into rap. There's a lot of rap in there. I don't know if did you catch that? How
Not
he
so
would
much,
do
but
that?
I mean, I guess the point I'm making is that there's clips in the film where Lerman is mashing up current pop artists,
Yes.
hip hop artists, R&B, like Doja Cat,
That's what I
fa-
meant. Yeah.
right, and blending that in with Elvis's, most famous songs.
Right.
And it's I mean, that's not easy to do.
No,
I would
it's
imagine.
seamless. It's seamless.
It is seamless. It is seamless. And but the cool thing about it is it he uses it in a way to sort of comment on the historical aspects of Elvis's
Mhm.
career too.
Mhm.
How Elvis, what inspired him to move the way that he did, and what inspired him to sing the way that he did, or sing the type of songs that he sang, and things like that. I thought that was really fascinating the way he did that throughout.
Yeah, and this is a movie that would be a great extra would be the soundtrack, because
Yeah.
you would hear those rap artists, off in the distance in the background. You almost have to listen for it, or it subconsciously just kind of gets into your brain, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Wow, I'm listening to rap."
Now
right
the
now.
the movie, of course, is about Elvis Presley, but
Mhm.
it's also it's very much about Colonel Tom Hanks. I mean Colonel Tom Parker,
Yeah, he didn't do the greatest,
played by
Colonel
Tom Hanks.
Parker.
Well, now I've said this before: is Tom Hanks is so recognizable,
Yeah.
and I always worry: am I going to buy him in this character? a very prominent um, character, like Tom Parker was. I mean, he
And
was kind of a larger than life character.
I kind of think he went that way. I don't know because I didn't read this. I'm guessing he might have gone that way because he went with an unknown for Elvis, somebody that really, has done a couple of things, but nothing on this level.
Mm-hmm.
So I think bringing in Tom Hanks,
Maybe, but I
probably
think
helped the box office. It did. The movie did very well.
probably helped it. Although I gotta say, so it will just run down real quick. So of course, Tom Hanks plays Colonel Tom Parker. Austin Butler is Elvis. Olivia DeJonge, I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, but she plays Priscilla.
Priscilla Presley, yeah.
Helen Thomson is Gladys, his mother, and then Richard Roxburgh, I think is how you say it, plays his father, Vernon. And I'll just say right off the bat, for me, now I've seen probably all the biopics that are out there, right? And one of the ones we've been very critical of over the years is Ray, starring Jamie Foxx.
Mm-hmm.
And, you think of all the others, most recently Bohemian Rhapsody, which this is the second highest grossing biopic behind Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, really?
According to the box office. Now,
I knew it did.
Budget on this less than 90 million. It's made almost 285 million, maybe somewhere in there.
Right, that's domestically. I think it's
yeah.
Well, no, because his biggest hit, I think, is The Great Gatsby, which did about $500 million.
Well, we're not talking about his. We're talking about biopic.
Yeah.
Comparisons. Yeah.
I'm
not talking about
I just kind of I mix the two, but yeah, I mean, and Tom Hanks not only plays Tom Parker, but he also narrates
and
a bit of the movie.
Tom Parker was, I mean, as portrayed in the film, he's pretty much like a carnival barker, really.
Well,
and essentially, stumbles upon and views Elvis as his next greatest attraction.
Well, really. I thought the whole circus, that was a metaphor for Elvis's life, because the guy was only 42, which when I think of his career, that always takes me back. Like, I always thought he was like 72. But I think that's because of the way he looked at the end. He looked rough, but I don't think they hammered Colonel Parker enough, because he was a degenerate gambler, and they kind of left out all his, he had about 8 guys around him. And, like they get into that, what do they call it? The president's sphere is like, it's hard to relate to the outside world from that. And that was kind of Elvis was locked in these people. And, it's arguably that any of them could have saved him at some point, but who's going to say no to Elvis?
Yeah. And of course it's narrated by Hanks as the character Tom Parker,
right?
Or the real life person, rather, who's really Andreas Cornelius Van Kujic or what?
Yeah,
whatever his real name was.
I didn't know that. That was a news to me when I watched this. I didn't know he was, like AWOL from another country. I had no idea.
Well, and just
but it makes sense.
Yeah, con man. He was a con man.
Yeah.
And of course he's purporting throughout the film that what killed Elvis, spoiler alert, he's not alive.
Elvis dies?
I know. Well, let me get back to that in a second.
I shut it off. There was 5 minutes to go. I figured nothing's going to happen here.
No, what could possibly happen? But he, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, you were talking about how
Oh, right.
Colonel.
He basically purports that, okay, yeah, the pills and the booze and this and that, but really what killed Elvis was love.
Love.
Was love. Yeah, but I think there's some validity in that point, just from the standpoint, not that love killed him, but his
Right.
craving for that attention, and
Right.
also to make people feel the way he was meant to feel through music in particular.
Yeah.
And, in order to continue to perform at a certain level and certainly, perform, I mean, the way that Parker had him going from city to city to city and all
Well,
these
that
different,
that
it was insane.
sequence, the
Yeah.
sequence where he's on the floor and he's out of it, completely out of it.
Mhm.
And Colonel Parker says, "The one thing that's important here is that man be on stage tonight."
Is that Horshack? Was Horshack in
I
this?
probably would have got
"Ah,
the
well,
part.
hello, Mr. Cutter."
I probably would have got the part. No, but
That's pretty bad.
that story is very famous because there was a lot of people witnessing it
Yeah,
in that hallway.
right.
And although I think it happened in his room, and usually Colonel Parker didn't go into Elvis's room. He was the
Mhm.
one person that was kind of left out of that crowd. But yeah, I think what you're kind of saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is by having him as a narrator throughout, we're kind of getting his view
Yeah,
of what went down,
right.
and not necessarily, you know, a
There's
lot
a
of
li
it's factual from other stories.
Yeah, and there is a certain response from Elvis's side, just in terms of, when you get a peek into his personal life and his relationship with Priscilla, and his mother in particular.
Yeah.
I didn't I gotta say, I don't remember that story about his mother, and
What,
the
being
thing.
an alcoholic or
Yeah.
overbearing, or yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really didn't recall that. Now, growing up, of course, so our father was, I mean, certainly the biggest Elvis fan that I knew, and
Yeah,
so
he when like, when you were, like, going to Springsteen, like, wherever he went, dad was like, that was like me with Elvis, but
difference being
yeah, the difference
he
being
didn't
he
see
go to all
Elvis.
these, yeah, I
He
don't think
didn't
he never saw him,
No.
did he?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
And there's 2 reasons. One, he didn't travel that much. He did Vegas for 6 years,
Right. That was
and he was
another.
one thing they did not mention in the movie, or maybe they did and I missed it, he had a terrible fear of flying.
I don't think they mentioned it, no,
Yeah, so
no.
he wouldn't get on a plane in the beginning,
Yeah, I
so
didn't
they had to take
realize.
buses.
Yeah, there's this whole storyline about Parker making this deal with the International Hotel in
Yes.
Vegas. And
Yes.
basically the deal is, for him to get all of his debts absolved, he has to
Wiped.
keep Elvis there for the next 5 years or whatever, because he's a cash
Right.
cow.
Right.
When at that point in his life, Elvis is wanting to go and explore the world. He
Right.
realizes, I've not been anywhere other than when he went to Germany when he was in the army.
Right.
But
And
yeah,
then
grow
and then, Colonel Parker takes credit for the closed circuit show that took in, like 1.5 billion
the
people
comeback
watching
special.
him. Yeah,
The
which I
68 comeback
remember.
special,
Yeah.
yeah. Now that was, again, Elvis was in the house growing up. It was just like he was part of the
Yeah.
furniture basically, and, and then you mentioned, Springsteen, I latched onto that from you, but it was interesting how there was like, Bruce was a huge Elvis fan,
Mhm.
and there's a very famous story of him and little Steven jumping the wall at Graceland trying to go meet Elvis, and
Mhm.
they get all the way up to the door, much like you almost did with Bruce
Right.
in that hotel, and,
And I got
the
invited in by
right,
Clarence,
right, and that was as far as it went, but
and then the security guy said, "What?"
yeah, no
And
pizza for
Clarence was
you.
right there, and just he said,
Yeah,
"Oh, he's okay."
that's brutal.
Yeah,
But
that was brutal.
but he gets turned away, you know, because Elvis actually, well, the story goes he was in Tahoe at the times, which you know could have been true, but you know,
Mm.
who was Bruce at that point? He's
Well,
like nobody knew who he was.
he's in one of Bruce's songs
Oh
with the
yeah,
drugs in his veins. I forget the song.
you thinking of Johnny Bye Bye?
Is that what it is?
Yeah, Bye Bye Johnny. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But so there was that awareness of Elvis at a young age, and you know, Dad had all those original Sun records in his
Hmm.
collection,
There's still
um,
some here.
and so I thought I knew a lot about Elvis. You know, not
Hmm.
only through Dad, but also through Bruce Springsteen. And I got to tell you, and I was also skeptical of this film, and I said this to you. You know, I keep seeing the trailers, and I was like, I don't know, that like this guy, it looks weird. I just
Yeah.
it was something. First, it was kind of the look was at first like off putting for some. It seemed too glam to me,
Yeah.
and
Well, he
then
had the makeup,
he had the
his
makeup right. But
eyeshadow.
this is a perfect example of how they don't do themselves any favors with the trailer, even though
No.
despite the money it's made. But
Right.
so where I'm getting at with this or going with this is that when this was over, I was like, wow. I said, this is absolutely, for me,
Hmm.
the best of all these biopic films. That I was blown away at what Baz Luhrmann did with this story because, you know, some of the things like Luhrmann does what many of those movies do. You know, again, Bohemian Rhapsody, Walk the Line, you know, Ray, whichever ones you want to talk about. He, you know, there's always Forrest Gump, you know, is not a biopic, but this commentary on history and historical events, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes they overshadow the actual subject of the film and they become distracting almost. Whereas I felt like Lerman, it was much more understated because think of all the things that were going on, you know, Martin Luther King's assassination and
Hmm.
Bobby Kennedy and all these things, really major, major historical events that
Which
had
he
an
covered.
impact, which he covered,
Yeah.
but he didn't crowbar them in. They were
Mm-mm.
so well placed
Hmm.
and just the right amount of attention paid to them. I thought it was brilliant because you could very easily, like I said, kind of go overboard with that sort of stuff. And then it becomes, you know, just sort of a
Becomes
pop culture
Ray.
film. It becomes
Yeah.
Ray, yeah. And also, again, I thought I knew Elvis, but the things that inspired him, you know, when you see him as a young boy and he's peeking in this old shack in Memphis and he's hearing this old blues player singing, which
Hmm.
probably is what my favorite Elvis song is That's All Right Mama. And
Hmm.
it's the musician Gary Clark Jr., who you probably know. He's an awesome
Hmm.
blues musician,
Hmm.
and he's playing Billy Crudup, I think, is the blues musician that
Yeah.
he's portraying in the film. And
Yeah.
you know, you see young Elvis, you know, peering through and just like, what is this? You know,
Yeah.
that I'm
Billy Crudup
witnessing.
is the actor you're talking about, right? Or
No, no,
no?
no. Gary Clark
Oh.
Jr. is the
Oh.
musician
Oh.
who
Okay.
played what did they call him? Little Billy Crudup or whatever his
Yeah.
moniker
There
was. I
there
don't
was
remember, but
somebody in there. Another
eh,
person that was in there too.
Little Richard.
Yeah. Little Richard was in there.
Mhm.
BB King,
BB King was in there, yeah, because
which
of
was a friend
Beale
of
Street.
his.
Yeah, the
Right.
the famous, yeah, Beale
That was
Street.
his big thing, was to go. That I think if Elvis would have been happy if he just stayed on Beale Street playing
Yeah,
in those little clubs.
and the inspiration through black music, R&B, soul, gospel in particular, which Dad was really into Elvis's gospel music later in life,
Mhm.
like really into it. Bought all the tapes and the
And people
CDs and
don't think about that, but
no,
the way, if and they showed him doing, setting this up in the
it's
movie where he's
that's
like,
right.
okay, now let me hear the horns, ba-da-bum,
Da-da-da.
ba-da-bum, and he set the whole
Yeah, you
thing
know what's
up.
interesting about that is I think there's a featurette on HBO Max that you can pull up. There's a few of them, and
Mhm.
I think, or it might have just been another interview that I watched about Austin Butler and his portrayal of Elvis. Is that particular scene? If I'm not mistaken, I think Lerman set it up to where the musicians,
Mhm.
they were intentionally playing it wrong and like off key to
Mhm.
force Butler into the character to do what you're saying, which was to
Right.
get them to get the sound he was looking. I mean, it's just brilliant. He
Yeah.
spent like 3 years researching Elvis for this
Yeah.
role, and it
Not
shows.
surprised.
And it shows. And again, just portraying Elvis. First of all, that's a heavy task. First
Yeah,
of all,
and
to try to
the
climb into that suit, but I just, Austin Butler was phenomenal. I thought he was just phenomenal.
now, did you hear there was someone else, it was Leo DiCaprio and somebody else, like, arm wrestling,
Oh,
and
to
they
get the role?
yeah, and they both knew Lerman and both worked with him.
I
I
forget.
don't
I
think it
yeah.
was
I looked that up, but I don't recall. I know that I think Maggie Gyllenhaal was actually, I think she was cast to be Priscilla, and then that fell
oh,
apart somehow
hmm.
because the woman that's playing Priscilla, Olivia DeJonge, she's very young. She's only like in her early 20s.
Yeah, and that was different too. I thought there was some license taken there with, some of the stories, and there's so many people that know that, like the 8 guys I told you about.
Hmm.
One night there's a bunch of girls, as was pretty typical, were at the gates at Graceland, and they decided to, hey, let's let them in.
Yeah.
And it was just a wild scene, if you can imagine.
Hmm.
And uh, they really, I mean, they really didn't go into that part of Elvis, because everything he did, everything he liked, he overindulged. Whether
Hmm.
it was women, drugs, whatever, he always took it too far, and nobody would tell him no.
Well, that's very typical for someone in that
Right.
position. Like you
You
said, you get
know,
all these yes people around you,
yes,
and they're making money off of you, and
right.
that's
We
where
see
their
it happening in our political system
yeah,
right
that's where
now.
their interest lies.
There was a thing on this week about Michael Jackson. I don't know if you saw the previews.
No,
Who killed Michael Jackson?
no.
Really similar stories. They were,
Mhm,
and you see the crossover
mhm.
because he married, Lisa Marie. It's
Sure.
weird when you think
Yeah.
about it.
There's a Nicolas Cage
Yeah.
connection in there. Probably goes back to Kevin Bacon if we really try.
Have you seen Elvis and Nixon?
No, I don't think so,
You
no.
should watch that.
Yeah.
It's a comedy.
You mentioned the '68 comeback special, and with Elvis, there's so many iconic moments throughout his
Right.
career. And again, I could have easily just flopped and just been a real bad imitation
Yeah.
and representation of those moments. But I mean, wow, the lengths they went to recreate. Now, Lerman does intercut some clips of the actual Elvis
Mhm.
in those actual moments
Mhm.
side by side. Now, there's a moment towards the end of the film where I swear to God, I looked and said, "Okay, wait a minute. Is that Elvis now or is that Austin Butler?" Like I was confused.
Which part?
It was one of the Vegas
Yeah.
scenes towards the
Yeah.
latter part of the film. I mean, that's how much I felt he inhabited the role. He just, and
I do
again, with the
too.
research that he did.
Yeah, I agree. And when I saw the previews for this, I was like,
We both
no
said
thanks.
that. We're like,
Yeah.
I'm good.
No.
I
I
and I think I
thought,
said I'm not even sure I'll watch it when it comes out on
yeah,
streaming.
I thought he from the previews, I thought they made him look kind of Hispanic somehow. And
Mm,
I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna see the Hispanic Elvis. And that's I was wondering, if his last name was like Lopez or something like that, because I thought that
what?
no, I really thought That's what I saw when I saw the previews. Now,
But
when
but
you
what if it
watch,
was? So what if it was the,
well,
you know,
yeah, I'm not saying it couldn't have been, but
right?
I'm saying, he looked,
Send
but
your letters,
Elvis
folks.
didn't look that way.
407.
No, Elvis didn't look Hispanic, is what I'm saying, basically.
476-8781.
But the kid in the black leather suit
Yeah,
and the
phenomenal.
moves,
Yeah.
he just nailed him down. There was the one scene, I think he was in a pink suit and
That's
he's
early
doing the
on.
feet
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the
The
drums.
wiggle, they called it, the
The
wiggle.
way, man, oh man, he had it nailed.
Now, Austin Butler is a musician. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't.
He's actually a
I know
musician.
nothing about him.
He's in it now. I don't know what it is. Maybe the guys can put it up on the screen, but he's in a pretty well-known band. So my apologies for not having that information at the ready. But he, if I understand correctly, it's him doing all of the sort of younger Elvis singing.
Mhm,
That's all
mhm.
him.
Yeah, I knew
That's
that.
all him actually doing.
Well, you watch the credits
Yeah, and
and
but
you can
late.
see what he sang and what he didn't sing.
Yeah, and late. Well, that's true. And later, it's kind of a mashup.
Yeah.
The actual Elvis vocals
The
and
last
stuff.
song is so famous that, and that's when you're really like, my shoulders slumped down when he sang that final song and it was really Elvis.
Mhm, mhm.
And to think he was 42, this was like
It's
3 weeks before his death,
It's hard to believe.
and he belted out that song, and it was like, no wonder why people loved Elvis so much.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of anything Dad liked. Yeah, there he is, and he
Mhm.
talks like Elvis
Oh,
now.
yeah. I mean, he worked with dialect
Yeah,
coaches and,
but
again,
this was like an interview, and he was being himself, but it
but
sounded like Elvis.
well, but you think about it, and I think he talks about it. You're consumed by the role for 3
Yeah, it's like
years
going to
plus.
another yeah, it's like going to another country
Yeah.
and staying there for a long time, and you pick
Mhm.
up an accent, or like living here.
Right.
I slip my R's a lot of times, and
This is a younger version of
oh, that's
Austin
him.
because he was a Disney Channel, and
That looks
Nickelodeon.
yeah,
Yeah, he was in Hannah Montana and things like that.
yeah.
So I didn't know of him.
I didn't either,
I'm
and
sure younger people do, but
then I saw Hanks as Colonel Parker, and
mhm.
he didn't quite look the part. Like he was all kind of just, made up. It
He's
was
gonna
all
be he's cast in the sequel to Dune by Denny
Hanks?
Villanueva. No, 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 no,
Oh,
Austin Butler.
oh,
Sorry, I
okay.
knew you went to Hanks, but
Yeah. But yeah, go see this. If
yeah,
it's
go
out
see it. I,
now.
I was curious where you would land on it. I was hoping that was going to be your response to it. I just thought Lurhmann did such a fantastic job of directing it, but also, and there's much to be said about the directing. We could spend a whole hour or
Right.
several
And I
hours
would
just
say
talking
to
about that.
you, if you haven't seen any of Baz Luhrmann's films,
Oh yeah, I have.
have you
Oh
watch a
yeah,
couple of them,
Moulin
because
Rouge and yeah,
he does the same thing. He's really has a mind for music
he does.
and people, and it's just a fantastic
Yeah.
flow. The movie just flowed perfectly.
And I don't, it's funny. I was talking to a young woman who just started working with me at the day gig, and she said her and her friend,
Mhm,
roommate, whatever, had just watched it and loved it, and she very very young,
mhm.
and it's kind of cool to hear that, that it kind of resonates. It doesn't really matter, and I don't think you have to be an Elvis fan either to enjoy
Yeah,
the film.
it's funny, when
You
I
know,
was in high school, there was some girls that thought I looked like Elvis. There was this
Mm.
poster that w
Costello.
that's what I was thinking, because, a girl I dated in high school, I went to her house and she had this big, huge poster of Elvis. And I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, you're an Elvis fan." And she says, "You don't see it?" And I said, see what?
I never saw that.
I
Ever.
never did either.
No.
And even me
Yeah.
looking at the poster, but her friends came over
Yeah.
and said the
Now,
exact same thing.
Baz Luhrmann? Doppelganger. Spitting
Colonel-
image for Baz Luhrmann.
Colonel
Tom
Colonel
Parker? A mirror
I mean,
spitting
pretty
image.
close.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah.
But I had to tell
More
that, not for
hair.
my ego, but I had to tell that because
a little bit for
I
the
certainly
ego.
didn't see it.
I think it's a little bit for the ego. but
Well,
that's okay.
maybe a
You know,
tad.
knowing that this is recorded for posterity's sake, I think it's ego.
Yeah, if you want me to strike a pose. You
Now,
know.
here's the other thing. Couple other quick things is this was 159 minutes long. I could have watched another 20 minutes.
Flew.
Of this. It flew by.
And the music's so familiar. And then there was all the music you didn't know, like I said, like the rap stuff and the gospel stuff that was layered throughout.
If I had one criticism of the film, it's that Luhrmann didn't put enough, in my opinion, didn't put enough attention on the whole story about Elvis basically co-opting these black songs, these black musician songs. And there's a very subtle commentary about it from the character that plays BB, or the guy that plays BB King. He's talking to Elvis out on a fire escape down on Beale Street, right at the club. And he makes this kind of little, just passing comment about Little Richard saying, you should go record this. Like you'd make way more money than this kid's ever going to be able to make. And that was like the only comment about it.
Yeah, they didn't show any interaction between him and Little Richard. And I thought, because Little Richard's the self-proclaimed finder of the Beatles and
talk about a character.
Yeah. So but yeah, I mean, this is a really good movie, a really good film. And
it is.
Even if you don't like Elvis, I would think you probably would like this.
Now, if you really love Colonel Tom Parker, you may not like this film.
It as much.
You may not like this film. So this is 2 thumbs up from old brother here for Elvis. I'm glad I was proven wrong, and I'm glad I watched it.
And I know you told me, you said, why don't you watch Elvis and we'll do that. And my remark was, I just started Elvis. It's 129. Oh,
I know. And I was trying to be subtle just to go, maybe we can just do it because it hit.
Usually, if you tell me to watch something, that's a little
giveaway.
Hint.
Yeah.
But,
I suppose so. But there's plenty of times like watch Mulan. Trust me.
Yeah. I mean,
11,000 people can't be wrong.
Yeah. It doesn't always work.
All right, so that's good. We're gonna wrap it up now. But go check out Elvis the movie on HBO Max right now. What do you got? Mike is holding up
Splatoon
3. What a weird,
I know,
unnecessary transition. In fact, I'm going to suggest an edit right here from the fine gentleman.
Well, it's Splatoon 3 day. Came out today. Normally I would be sitting.
Yeah, I think we're going to chop that out. Replace it with, could we do this? Could we have Mike holding it up, but actually make it the Elvis movie? Let's do that. That would be better.
The one last thing is,
oh my Lord,
I always fought against Dad's music.
Not Elvis.
Even with Elvis, I fought it because it sounded kind of country at times. Elvis kind of fit into all sorts of genres.
Well, he did, but not what I was listening to. Hound Dog, Jailhouse Rock.
Yeah, but
That's All Right, Mama.
He was such a country guy, which
now or never
worked such in my favor because when I started to audition for gigs as a drummer, I knew every song on the, because of Dad, I knew everything.
Yeah, that was like Dad's cruel joke, I think, from the afterlife. Because he used to tell me growing up, he'd always say, because of the country thing, I'm like, as much as we went camping and we were in the woods and this, that, and living that life, because I think Dad wanted to be a cowboy in another life. He would have gone to Westworld. He'd have hung out in Westworld for quite a while. But he would say, one day, kid, one day you're gonna appreciate this music, this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, hey, I couldn't stand it.
Right.
And then sure enough, later in life, I could at least appreciate the musicianship
Mhm.
behind it. And then when someone, when all of a sudden Springsteen starts putting out albums that are very country influenced,
Mhm.
all of a sudden you start opening up to it. I'm like, son of a bitch was right.
Yeah.
You know?
And it like I made a lot of money back then because of Dad, because you have to go on the fly, and a lot of times the keyboard, I was behind the keyboard player usually, and he'd turn around if people are up dancing. You
Mhm.
don't want to stop and start another song. You lose them. They go down. So he'd just turn to me and say, like, 5/8, and we just change on the fly. So
Mhm.
yeah, I owe all that to Dad.
That sounds like Dad in the driveway too. Danny, get the 5/8.
Yeah, give me a
I need
5/8.
the
What is
5/8.
You know what I would
That's a
hate?
socket, dumbass.
Our dad was a mechanic, and he could, fix anything, and I'm the opposite,
Yeah,
and
none of
he
that.
would say, "Hey, Mike, get me the Google wrench for," it's in the
The
and
Google wrench.
I'd come back with, like, 4 things because I
Mike
didn't know what the hell he was
Mike doing
talking
a
about.
Baz Lurhmann. He's taking something contemporary in Google, and then he's mashing it up with the wrench. I love that.
But
That's a
I would
great.
come back with, like, 8 things, and hopefully he would
Does this
pick it,
work?
and he's like, "I said a Google wrench."
How am I supposed to fix the calculator with a without a Google wrench?
Yeah, good lord, this calculator. It's
It's
'cause of
next to
you.
the Amazon pliers, you
I'm
stupid
going to
idiot.
play pinball down at Ray's.
Oh my god. Ray's, who he hated. Okay. All right. Well, listen, before we go, again, for those of you that are not currently following us, make sure that you do. And the easiest way to find all things Oh Brother is to go out to our official website, which is OHB as in brother, podcast.com. That's ohbpodcast.com.
Tell your
And-
friends. Tell your friends.
Yeah, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are just a small number away from getting to what we consider to be quite a milestone for the Oh Brother podcast. So
Yeah.
do us a favor. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Tell your friends. Have them subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode of the Oh Brother podcast. And if you also like to stream your podcast, we're on every single podcast player that you could possibly think of. So you can catch us out there as well. Drop us a review. I'd like to get some more reviews out on, like iTunes and Spotify.
And what's
and
that
things
phone
like
number again there, Dan?
The phone number is 407-476-8781. You can leave us a voicemail, which we might feature on an episode of the Oh Brother podcast. But yeah, that's it for Elvis. And Mike and I now are going to leave the building. So that's going to do it for another episode of the Oh Brother podcast. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith. And we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.